Hi, welcome to Less of Me Success Stories. I'm your host, Robyn Dobbins. Natalie is here as tonight's co-host. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Robyn. We know what it's like to be helpless and hopeless. Your journey is not over. You can rewrite your story anytime. We provide a platform for people to share their stories and how they reclaim their lives using dietary interventions.
Thank you, Natalie. So, you guys, this is going to be our last live episode. We love this format. The whole purpose of this format was to be able to connect our guest with our audience. But we've just struggled with it, and we've gotten a lot of feedback to say that it's just not working. And people want the audio versions of our podcast. They don't want to watch it on YouTube. So we want to take that into consideration, except for since we were recording all of our episodes live, we didn't have a whole bunch of content stored to put video or to put the audios out rather in a timely fashion. So we've decided that we're going to switch to recording episodes. However, our guest tonight really wanted to do a live one, and we certainly wanted to oblige that because I think it's going to be a good one. So in the future, you won't see us live, but we are working very hard behind the scenes to start recording episodes so that we can post one episode a week, audio, and here on YouTube. And hopefully that we can heed the advice that a lot of our guests have given to us, because we really are trying to grow our podcast. So thank you all for your feedback and your patience. We really do appreciate it. We're learning as we go, and we really want to make this the best that we possibly can. So I do want to say another thing. I did drop a brand new episode that was a recording here on YouTube. It was with Dr. Eric Rogers on April 10th. So if you missed that, please go back and watch it. All of season 3 audio dropped. So wherever you listen to podcasts, that is available. And this episode, as well as the remaining episodes from season 4, will be dropping audio version on June 1st. So keep an eye out for that. And if you subscribe to our podcast, it'll give you an alert when those things drop. Now, before I introduce our next guest, I want to remind you that we are not offering medical advice. So we like to share stories of healing for informational purposes. If you'd like to do any dietary interventions, we do recommend that you speak with your medical team before starting. Now, I met tonight's guest 2 years ago at the Collaborative Science Conference in Las Vegas. And speaking of collaborative, our guest organized 2 well-attended dinners. And if that wasn't enough, he did it all again at this most recent COSI. I appreciate his hard work because the dinners were a great opportunity to meet people in a low-carb community. I really don't want to give much of his story away because he has a lot to tell us, but I do want to say what I love about our guest. He is living proof that you are never too old or too broken to make the necessary changes to heal. He is on a mission to pay it forward and help others kick ass and make changes, mind, body, and spirit. Please welcome our guest, retired Lieutenant Colonel Les Lyons. Hello, Les, welcome.
Wow, Robyn, I was so excited. I was wondering who the guest was going to be, and it turns out it's me. So that's great. Thank you for the intro. I don't know if there's a dubious honor being last on your lives or not. Either you save the best for last, or you went, oh my God, let's just push him out to the very last when he can go last. But yeah,
I believe it was the former. We did save the best for last. So I have been looking forward to this. If you guys have been following along, this is the rescheduled date because I was sick and not able to do it in an original schedule. And I've just been looking forward to it ever since. So I'm very happy we were able to reschedule and make it work and keep it live so that we can interact with our audience tonight.
That's great, Robyn. Yeah, this is fun. I've been looking forward to it as well, and a little nervous because I don't do this very often. I'm usually doing one-on-one kind of stuff and local workshops and everything. But yeah, this is a lot of fun, and hope some of the people that I invited are able to watch this. It's I'm glad you said the deal about this is not medical advice, because as I love to say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a healthcare professional, I've never even played the doctor on TV. So I've got no initials after my name. I'm just a guy that was, let's see how I put it when I wrote this stuff out. I went from fat and lethargic to kicking ass after 70. And I did that over a period of really, it was like 10 to 14 months, but I've been doing it now for about 2.5 years. So I'll tell you a little about that, just so you know where I came from and where I'm headed, and then talk a little more about where I'm going from this point forward, because I love doing research. I love going down rabbit holes and finding out things. And I know not to trust Dr. Google. So when I find something that sounds like it might be promising, I like checking it out and figuring out if it's good or not, because part of my ability, I think, is to be able to do research and separate the wheat from the chaff, as they say, and then only give people the wheat so that you don't have to spend the time doing all the research like I had to do. Because in August of 2022, you might have seen some of my pictures that Robyn posted before, but I know you're supposed to do good self-talk, but as a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, my self-talk was looking in the mirror and go, you're a fat slob. You know, you're out of shape. You have all kinds of medical problems. You've got medications you're on, blah, 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 blah. And it's time you need to get your butt back in shape. So that's the way I do self-talk with myself, and the way I did it 2.5 years ago. The challenge is that I was overweight. At the time, I was 238 pounds, wore a size 40 jeans, which were getting a little tight, and a double XL t-shirt and all this. And I just didn't feel good. I wasn't in a good situation. I was living out in, okay, I'll be polite and call it California instead of my normal nickname for it. But I was in California, Texas boy in California, didn't like it. And so I've since changed all that, but I just didn't feel good, and I didn't have a good outlook on life. I was lethargic. And so I asked my doctors, and here's what I was told about all kinds of things. I was overweight. I had skin tags. I had extremely dry skin. I was out of breath. My knees started bothering me. And in fact, it was so bad that at the time, and I've still got this, I still keep it, my cane that I had to go buy. And since I had to buy a cane, I went to a defense store and bought a heavy duty one that won't break if you hit somebody with it. So I did all that because I couldn't get up and down stairs. I was doing what I call the old man stair step, where you put your foot up on a step and then you bring the other one up to the same step. And then you put your next foot up and do that. And that was horrible. I mean, I was Army, infantry, airborne, Pathfinder, all this kind of good stuff. And I was in great shape. And over the years, though, because I was a citizen soldier, so I did a lot of reserve time, and then I had my regular job. And in my regular job, corporate executive in several different multi-billion-dollar companies, I had to entertain clients. So what does that look like? You go out, you have drinks before dinner, you have a dinner loaded with carbs and loaded with the desserts at the end. You have drinks during dinner, you put away some wine, and then after dinner, you have after dinner cocktails, maybe you smoke a cigar, stuff like that. But long story short, I had years of doing that. So I had trained my body to be lazy, to store all of the fat, and basically just fall apart. So when I asked the doctors, how am I going to get off of this? How am I going to get off of that? They go, well, you're not. You're just going to keep taking that for the rest of your life. And so I was on like 11 drugs at the time. And I was like, you mean I'm going to take 11 drugs for the rest of my life? And they go, yeah. I said, well, what do I do about my knees? I mean, how do I fix my knees? They go, yeah, you can't fix them. You just get them replaced. And that'll last 10 or 15 years. And then you just get those replaced again. And I went, well, that's not a good solution. I said, what else? They go, well, we can give you pain pills for the pain. And I go, but how do I solve it? And they said, you can't. It just comes with old age. And then I used to jump out of airplanes a lot. And I had lower spinal stenosis, which I've been told I've still got. And I was really having severe back problems. So they said, they finally did an MRI, confirmed it was lower spinal stenosis, and said, okay, you can have operations, or we can just give you these pain pills, and every once in a while you can come in for I think it's a cortisone shot, something like that, where you can get that. That'll give you relief for 4 to 6 months. Then you get another one, blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, since my doctors can't give me anything other than pain pills and more meds, I'm just going to have to do my own research. And a really good friend of mine named Mark, I won't tell you his last name, but Mark, he lives in Fort Worth now. He was out in California with me. And Mark, when I knew him 5 or 6, 7 years ago, he was 320 pounds. And most recently, you know, 2.5 years ago, when I was going through this, he was 160 pounds. So he literally lost half of his body weight. Mark went from 2 marks to 1 mark, is what I like to say. And I'm going, Mark, how do you do that? And he goes, you just eat meat. And I go, well, I love to eat meat. So, okay, what else? And he goes, that's it. And I go, what are you talking about? He said, it's carnivore. And I went, what the heck is that? And I thought he was goofy. I thought he was like messed up. And I thought, that's weird. You know, all you do is eat meat. And he goes, well, you get to eat eggs and stuff like that. So I said, okay, I can't really do that. He goes, well, then just go on like a low carb diet. And so I went, I think one of the things, I've tried everything in the world over the last 40 years. I think this one, I went from paleo to low carb to keto. And I saw a little bit of progress, not a lot. A few pounds came off, but not many. And then I went ketovore, which is down to about, I don't know, 5 or 10 carbs a day. Not very many at all, not compared to what I was eating. Because this boy can sit down at a sitting and eat a half gallon of Bluebell homemade vanilla ice cream. And that was one of my downfalls. And the second one was going to Costco and buying the huge box of Cheez-Its. And I could sit down, and if I tried real hard, I could eat that whole box of Cheez-Its at one sitting. And there's like 100,000 carbs in a box of Cheez-Its or something like that. So I was an addict. I was a carb addict and I was a sugar addict. And Mark goes, just do this. So like I said, I started losing a little weight. When I finally said, okay, Mark, I'll try this carnivore thing. What do I do? He said, just eat meat, beef, butter, bacon, eggs, maybe a little cheese, but try and stay away from that. Don't do a lot of dairy and just focus on meat. And I said, you mean like steaks? And he goes, yeah, but don't eat sirloins. I said, what should I eat? He said, eat ribeyes. And I went, well, I love ribeyes. So I said, great, let's try that. So I just started watching the sales at, you know, the different grocery stores and buying a bunch of ribeyes, a bunch of T-bones. I'd buy some tri-tips. I learned about picanha, which is a great thing. It's on the rump of the cow and it's got a big fat cap on it. And it's the best fat you'll ever eat in your life. So I started doing all of that. And all of a sudden, it's like somebody flipped a switch and the weight started coming off and I started feeling better and my gut started coming down. And over 8 months, I went from a 40 waist pant to a 38, then a 36, then a 34, and finally a 32. And the problem with that is every time I drop, I'd buy clothes. And then a month later, I'd buy more clothes and I have to get rid of my clothes I just bought. So I became a really good friend of Wally World and went into Walmart a lot because they have George t-shirts and George jeans and a line of clothing called George, which is not very expensive and it's great. I love them. And I bought that. But the net of it was over this 8 months, I went from being a fat, lethargic, I won't say without hope, but I will tell you, hope was just a dim light down a long tunnel. And I didn't know how I was going to change all this. And I did all of that on the eating. I hired a yoga instructor because I was too embarrassed to go to a yoga class with other people. And I thought yoga was for sissies, as far as boys were concerned. I thought yoga was for sissies, and I found out it's not, and it's really good. That did a huge amount to help me. I hired a personal strength trainer, and he was a retired Marine. Now, I was an Army officer. He was a Marine enlisted guy. And I told him, Enter, E-N-N-E-R was his first name. I said, Enter, your job as a Marine is to kick my ass as an Army officer, but don't kill me. I said, you can do anything you want. You can taunt me and everything else. You can call me a big wussy if I try and quit early and all that, but your job is to get me in shape. He goes, I'm going to love this. So he did, and all of that happened. And I went from 238 to 8 to 9 months later, I was down to 183, I think. So I lost 55 pounds. I think that's the math. I lost 55 pounds in that 8 months. But more importantly, my gut was gone. I wasn't having to use my cane. My knee problems were gone. My lower spinal stenosis, although it was still there, I guess, wasn't bothering me. And the thing that pissed me off is when I went into the doctors, the doctor would go, oh, that's impossible. You still have knee problems. You still have arthritis, and you still have lower spinal stenosis. So I started doing jumping jacks. I got down on the floor and did push-ups in the doctor's office and was running in place. And the doctor's freaking out. He's going, what are you doing? And I said, I'm proving to you that I'm fixed. And he said, well, you're not fixed. And I go, what would you call it if you saw a guy that could barely move and now he's doing what I just demonstrated for you? He goes, well, you're not fixed, but at least you've made progress, or some kind of baloney like that. So don't trust your doctors per se. Okay, this is not medical advice, but don't treat them as gods. As one famous guy in this industry said, they're all dudes and chicks, just like we are. So just treat them as an expert, as a specialist, but they're a specialist to advise you. So what I did is I went to my doctors, and I did this after doing a lot of thinking about it. And I told them, I said, look, I'm putting together a team of subject matter experts. And on that team, I'm going to have a urologist. I'm going to have a primary care physician. I'm going to have a back guy. I'm going to have a bone guy, and all these different doctors that I've been going to. I said, your job is to advise me of the best care that you can think of that I need for your specialty. And I will take that under advice, do my own research, and let you know whether or not I'm going to follow what you tell me to do. And a couple of them got real pissed off and said, that's not going to work. I'm the doctor. You don't know squat and all this kind of thing. And I said, I will bring you in all the research articles that I find and the help that I got from AI and all this. And long story short, because I told them, I said, there's nobody that cares more about Les Lyons' health than Les Lyons. And I said, and they go, oh, a couple of them went, oh, no, I care about you. I said, no, you don't. In the 8 minutes that I see you once or twice a year, you read my chart before you come in the door, so you remember who I am or what I did. And then you try and tell me what you're going to tell me, but then I have to live with it the rest of the time when I'm not seeing you. So I care about me. You're on the team as my subject matter expert, or you're not. And if you don't want to, no hard feelings. I'll just find somebody who will. Every one of them signed up. Every one of them said they'd be on the team, which was great. And so instead of pushing pills on me and drugs and stuff like that, they were very impressed with my progress, told me keep doing what I'm doing and all this. And I gave them copies of some of the articles. Who knows if they ever read it. But I went from getting my ass kicked right when I turned 70 to kicking ass after 70, which is how I came up with this, because I found this weird doctor named Dr. Ken Berry, who is a doctor in Tennessee, and he's been a family physician for over 20 years. He's not really weird. I just say that in case he ever watches this. He's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable, and he's huge in this industry. And he has written a book, which is right up here if you can see it. It's called Kicking Ass After 50. And one day on the call, as I was getting better, and I told him, I said, Dr. Berry, I said, you may be kicking ass after 50, but I'm kicking ass after 70. And he goes, Les, that is great. He said, you should take that and run with it. You should get your own YouTube channel, and you should write a book, and you should do this and do that. And so that's how I got the Kicking Ass After 70, the website, the YouTube channel, all that stuff. And me just moving forward, which I'll talk about in a minute, to try and help others. I feel like I'm talking like 150 miles an hour. Am I doing okay, Robyn?
You're talking 150 miles an hour, but it's all amazing stuff that you're saying. So, and also, I do want to say, I would love it if Dr. Berry listened to our show. So maybe you'll inspire him to do so just by putting it out in the world like that. It's floating around. So he'll pick us up. I'm sure it won't be a problem. So I don't have, you know, what's funny is I jot notes as we go along, and the story's amazing, but I was more going, oh, we have that in common. My dad's retired from the Army National Guard and used to jump out of airplanes all the time. Like all that, like these are the things that I'm picking up. I probably should have listened to the health stuff, huh? No, I listened to all that too. And it's very impressive that in 8 months' time, you dropped 55 pounds and eliminated all of the ailments that you had. But I don't know that you said this. Did you also eliminate the 11 medications that you were on?
Great question, Robyn. All but one. I got rid of the next to the last one with my cardiologist here in Bryan College Station, who I absolutely love, man. And I asked him, is there any way you could be my primary care physician? And he started laughing and said, no, I'm a specialist. I'm a cardiologist. I can't do that. But yes, he took me off the last one, and he took me off of my lisinopril, which was my blood pressure med, and said, try it for a week or two without it, see what happens. Well, my blood pressure went up. So that's the last thing I'm working on. And I just saw him last week. He is committed to getting me off of the lisinopril. And so we're doing a sleep study because he thinks I may have sleep apnea. And he said that could cause high blood pressure. So he's committed to, within the next 12 months, getting me off of that med. And then I'll be off of everything except my baby aspirin. So
that's amazing. That's amazing for two reasons. One, you've been able to reduce all this medication, but two, you found a cardiologist that is willing to work with you. Like that's a needle in a haystack. So that's really good.
Yes, it is. And like I said, this guy is great. And my objective was getting off all this. And I'm an old guy. Okay. I'm 73 and a half years old. Okay. I don't look it. I don't feel like it. I can probably whip a lot of people's asses who are in their 50s and 60s and maybe even their 40s. And I'm in better shape now than I was in probably since my late 30s. And it's all because of this. And all the other things I talk about, my skin tags are gone. My dry skin, which I had for years, I've been to probably 30 dermatologists over the last 40 or 50 years. And everyone goes, Les, you got dry skin. You need to put lotion on. You need to take cool showers. You need to blah, 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 blah. They tell me all this crap, which is really crap. And you know what? Fixing myself by eating fats and meat fixed my dry skin. And I don't have dry skin anymore. And I still take hot showers. I still do all this other kind of stuff. All my skin tags went away. And I found out on skin tags, when you get old and get skin tags, don't pull them off. Don't just think they're a little something there, because it hurts if you pull them off. But yeah, all my skin tags went away. And Dr. Sean O'Mara talks about running sprints and getting your heart rate up and doing it a couple of times a week. And I do that. And it's phenomenal because I wear a heart rate monitor and I actually check myself and I start myself running and I hold it until my heart rate pegs out at where I know my heart rate max is. I hold that at the pegged point for about 12 to 15 seconds. And then I bring it back down to a walk and let my heart rate come back down to, for me, around 125, somewhere in there. And once it hits 125, then I go again. Full speed, full tilt. Get my heart rate up to about 158 to 60 beats a minute, which is about where it should be for a 73-year-old in my health status right now. And you do that. So I'm getting off on a tangent, but that's just one of the things that I do. I'm really into, as you said, Robyn, body, mind, and spirit. And the spirit it's all because of God that this is happening with me. It's not because I'm some kind of a super whiz guy that discovered all this stuff. I totally believe that it's through God's grace and help that's helped me find the way back to good health. And it's hugely affected my mind. So my spirit got nurtured, my mind got nurtured, and my body fixed itself, which all three of those work together. Anybody who, if you don't know what this is, look it up. Go look up what a Venn diagram is, V-E-N-N. A Venn diagram is three circles that are intertwined. And so when two of the circles, like body and mind, overlap, that little overlap part means anything that's inside there that you do or whatever affects both your body and your mind. Same thing over where the mind and the spirit overlap, and where the body and the spirit overlap. And in the center, there's a little sweet spot where all three of them overlap, which says if you do anything in this area, it impacts positively or negatively your body, your mind, and your spirit. So keep that in mind. That's my focus. And then within the body part of it, I focus on three things, and I'm training some people on this now in a workshop. It's eat, sleep, and move. Eat, sleep, move. It's that simple. And by the way, eating is really a lot simpler than sleeping. And I know you guys may think that's weird, but it is. Sleeping is very complex. Most people think of sleeping as I go to bed at night, I put my head on the pillow, I go comatose, and I either have a good night's sleep or I get up and I'm restless and I wake up and I go back to sleep and blah, 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 back and forth. They have no clue as to how the sleep actually is. So what I tell people now is I said, put your head on the pillow for 9 hours a night. I don't care if you're going to tell me that you're going to be awake 3 of those hours or whatever. Put your head on the pillow for 9 hours a night. You pick the 9 hours. It could be 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. It could be 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. But don't come back with the 11:30 and you got to get up at 6:30 in the morning kind of thing, because that's not 9 hours on the pillow. So sleep's really important, and the type of sleep. You have slow wave sleep, SWS, which is your body it's called deep sleep. Your body is nurturing itself. It's rebuilding itself physically when you're in deep sleep. You have REM sleep, rapid eye movement. The rapid eye movement is when you're dreaming all these dreams. Like I had a dream for a while. I was a Secret Service agent running alongside the president's limo, and I was trying to protect the president from being attacked and all this. And I woke up in the morning just totally drenched and just, whoa, you know. But I was getting good REM sleep. So REM sleep fixes your mind. And then you have light sleep, and then you have all this other stuff. So that's a whole nother discussion. But oh man, I'm like going off on different things. But yeah, really important.
You're absolutely fine, Les. You're doing great. But I am going to pause for just a moment, because I do want to make sure I say out loud. I'm not monitoring the YouTube, Natalie is, but I do know that we have some people on, and I want to just make sure I say out loud. Y'all can interact, ask your questions in the chat, and Natalie will come on and ask them for you on your behalf, so that you can also interact with Les, because he is a wealth of knowledge and has amazing stories. So I'm sure you all want to join in and talk with him as well. So we want to make sure we make that happen. So, but go ahead and wait a minute. Natalie already has something. I'm not going to say anything else. Take it away, Natalie.
We don't have any questions in the chat yet, but I have a question, Les. Can you tell me more about your website? Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I'm super intrigued by it. So hopefully you can give me just a little blurb about it, or as long as you want. It's up to you.
So I'll tell you a funny one, Natalie. My website, I liken it to putting a monkey in the space shuttle and saying, fly this thing. So I've been working on my website for about 1.5 years, and I've got a young lady named Cole out in California that's helping me with that. And I've got it up. It's a very much of a Western theme. If you go to Kicking Ass After 70, you'll see it's patterned after the Old West, and if you read the About Us section, I've got an About Us section, and all of you guys are going to think it's a bunch of baloney, but it's not. I come from in the Lyons side of the family, my name, I come from a long line of cowboys, and in Texas, and one of them even won a big roping contest in Pleasanton, Texas back in, I want to say 1898. And I have a silver pocket flask that they used to carry whiskey in, that's got a beautiful engraved horse head on one side, and on the back side it says first place in the roping contest, Pleasanton, Texas, got the date and all that. But anyway, I come from a long line of cowboys, so I've got a really cool story in there for you for the About Us section that I've done. And the website, I've got these ideas. It's around body, mind, and spirit. You'll see that on the website. You'll see some different things, but it's really a skeleton right now because I am reinventing myself at 73 years old, except there's so much knowledge. It's just like you can't see it, but above me is track lighting. And actually, you can see the top of the track back there above me, right up there. You can see the track. Lord have mercy. It took me like a week and a half to figure out how to get the track, how to install it and all that, because there's a left and a right, and there's two power, there's a power and a ground on one side, and there's something else on the other side. And you have to make sure you get them right and you get the T's, and you got to get a left-hand T or a right-hand T. Anyway, that's just one example of all the technology nowadays and that's just to get the lighting in. It has nothing to do with the camera or the microphone or anything else. And then once you get the lighting in, then you have to go to Apple and buy their Apple dimmer switch so you can sit here with your phone and dim the lights. So if I got too much light behind me, I can dim them and all this. And I watch a lot of YouTubes and I'm learning this stuff, but there's only so many hours in the day. And so I've got to get my YouTube channel working. I'm sorry, my website working better. And I want to get my YouTube channel going. So this right here is the impetus for me to really get that cranking. And I'm going to do something different on my YouTubes than I think some other people have done. And then I've got my little studio here, which is really my breakfast nook in my kitchen that I've filled out with my books and everything, built the custom bookshelves and all that, and got my stuff up. And so I'm trying to reinvent myself, because if you want to grow old and have a long longevity, that's maybe redundant, but if you want to have a happy, healthy longevity, you have to do things proactively for yourself, in your body, in your mind, and in your spirit. So this all comes together, because otherwise you're going to be an old person sitting around waiting to die. And I hate to be that crass or crude, but I see so many people my age and even 5 and 10 years younger that have all kinds of medical ailments. And in my opinion, they're just counting the days until they're no longer with us. And me, I'm sitting here, and this is the weirdest thing you guys are going to hear me say tonight. I told God back in when I was 70, I said, God, I've not done a good job for you in terms of representing you, even though I've said I've been a Christian for a long time. I said, so if you help me get fixed and fix me, I said, I'll spend the next 70 years spreading the gospel, doing what you want me to do. As this sign above me says, loving God and loving others. Loving God's pretty easy, I've figured out. Loving others is the hard piece, especially loving those that are in the left-hand lane going 55 miles an hour. But that's another story. But yeah, loving God and loving others. So my objective is to live to be 140. And I have, my doctors, yeah, okay, whatever, and all that. I'm going, no, I'm deadly serious about that. I don't like to use the word dead, but I'm deadly serious about that. I want to live to be 140, and I want to help other people. So my whole thing is, and I just came up with something new. Kicking ass after 70 is great. It's a great thing to have, and because that's where I am now. I am absolutely kicking ass every day. But you know what? Back 2.5 years ago, I was getting my ass kicked. So when you're getting your ass kicked, you're not thinking about kicking ass. You're thinking about, how am I going to get up those stairs without my cane that I left in the car and stuff like that. So you've got to have something that seizes you and says, you know what, maybe this will help. And I didn't come up with this myself. I got this from the executive floor upstairs. And just one night at 1:47 a.m. in the morning, about 6 weeks ago, I woke up, and what I had in my mind was LOLO, LOLO. And I had no idea what that was. And I tried to go back to sleep and I couldn't. And I had these thoughts going through my mind. So finally I just got up and I wrote it down, everything. And then I was able to go back to sleep. And the next night I woke up at like 2:30 in the morning, and it came into my mind, living on love outreach. And I go, okay, LOLO, Living on Love Outreach. So I said, I kind of like that. It's catchy and all that. Who knows where my brain came up with that, or whether it was inserted by somebody or something else, whatever, but that's what I came up with. And so now I've got another endeavor which meshes with the Kicking Ass After 70, and it's called Living on Love Outreach. And what it is, it's how do I reach out and love others and help others. And I've not been a reaching out, loving others kind of guy most of my life. So this has been a big change for me. But I made myself a deal about 6 weeks ago that said every day, if I'm out in public, not here on my little mini ranch, if I'm not here all by myself, but every day that I go out and I bump into somebody, I'm going to make 3 people that day minimum smile, laugh or smile. Laughs preferred, but at least smile. And you know what? I've been able to do it. And you know what? Not a single person has called me a weirdo. Not a single person has said, get away. Not a single person has frowned. Every person, 100% to a person, has warmed up, has smiled, has started talking to me. I get emotional about this, but it's just been great because I'm getting more out of it than they are.
I think it's
Anyway.
Beautiful. It's very, like, because of the way that you and I met. It was before LOLO.
Yeah.
Before LOLO, and you were already starting to practice this by organizing so much. Like, it was, I know that was a lot of work, but it came from this passion to get people together and to commune with them and just like be with people, and you're just a joy to be around. So it's really hard to hear, because I know this less. It's really hard to hear that that's not how you always were. So it's just absolutely amazing to hear this transformation, just total transformation. And that instead of doing like a lot of people do and sitting in their chair and just waiting to go, and just being sick and on every medication and seeing every specialist and just sitting and waiting, you took the bull by the horns and said, no, that's not going to be my life. And even though I did this for myself, it's important for me to help spread it to others, because you could have stopped it yourself, but that's not who you are. And you're branching out. And I just absolutely love that. I think that this is going to be a very good thing, not just for you, but for everyone who you touch.
Yeah, thanks, Robyn. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm trying for. That's my pact with God, is just to help others. And it's been so much fun. And you know what? I've found all these people that I reach out to. One guy, this was at Harbor Freight Sunday 2 weeks ago. I'm in the store getting something, and he's is Saturday afternoon, and he's in the store and he's wearing a work outfit. And I just struck up a conversation with him. I said, "Oh man, you must have had to work today." And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, that's tough. At least they're paying you overtime, right?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, man. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it," and all that. And I said, "What do you do?" And we started talking, and he warmed up. He started smiling and all this kind of stuff. And it was just great, because you know what? I've heard this expression a long time ago, but there's a lot of people just leading lives of quiet desperation. And they don't talk to anybody. It's like years ago when I used to walk down the streets in New York City, when I was up there for business, just for chucks, walking 2 blocks from my hotel to the office, I'd look at everybody in the eye and smile and say, "Hey, good morning. How are you doing?" All that. And some people actually moved over to the other side of the sidewalk because they're like, "Who is this weirdo?" and stuff like that. But people are in little cocoons, and they have their own little shell and their safe life and all that. But a lot of them are lonely. And when you talk to them, they just blossom, and makes me feel great. And it makes them feel great. So I guess everybody wins on that deal. So some things that you have to look forward to if you make this change. And by the way, it's a bear and I'm just going to say it, getting off sugar is a bitch. It is hard to do. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine, they say. And I believe that. But the only way I was able to do it was to get a great big cardboard box, go into my pantry. Every single thing that was in a box or a container or whatever that had sugar on it or that had all this processed food that I knew would be bad for me went in this box. And then when I went next door to my neighbor with this box, he's married and has 3 kids. And I went, Brian, I've got a bunch of stuff that I can't use, and rather than throw it away, I wanted to see if you want it. He looks through it. It's like I gave him $10,000 in gold coins or something. He's like, oh my gosh, this is great, and all this. I didn't have the heart to tell him that it was all bad stuff that he shouldn't eat. I've since told him that, by the way. But yeah, it's
Brian,
like,
I'm really sorry I tried to poison you and your
yeah.
children.
Exactly. It's like, Brian, dude, I'm sorry, but I just had to get rid of it and I couldn't throw it away. And so I got rid of all that. And that's the only way there's 2 types of people. There's moderators and abstainers. There's very few moderators and there's a whole lot of abstainers, because a moderator can say, oh, I'll take one little taste of that pecan pie. And they take a little taste and go, yeah, that was good, but I'm good. Me, I have not only that one piece of pecan pie, but when other people are not in the kitchen, because I did this over Christmas, when other people aren't in the kitchen, I go back and get 2 or 3 more pieces of that pecan pie and eat them. I cannot moderate. Therefore, I have to abstain. I'm like an alcoholic that's been dry and sober for 15 years, and I can't take even an ounce of that drink, because I know if I have an ounce, I'll drink a bottle. And so it's that way with me, and I'm okay. I'm okay with abstaining, and it works perfectly well for me. And since I've converted myself, I took my daughter and her husband and grandson. We all went to the Renaissance Festival back when it was down here outside Navasota a few months ago. And I got on this they have this big trampoline thing there with bungee cords that they strap you in, and you bounce up and down on this trampoline. Well, I said, this is so much fun. I'm going to start. And I paid the guy before I got on. I said, all right, I'm going to do something. I said, look, I used to be a skydiver. Bear with me. I said, I'm going to turn backflips. And he goes, okay. And I said, can you turn backflips on this thing? And he goes, if you're good enough, you can. And I said, okay. And I gave him $5 or $10. And I said, here's a tip. Keep me going and because they grab the bungees and pull you down. And I said, keep me bouncing high. And I went up the first 2, I got to the top and I was screaming and hollering. Of course, I attracted a lot of people for the event. But I got to the top, and the first 2 or 3 times couldn't do it. Finally, I flipped. Once I learned how to flip, because I'm not an acrobat. Once I learned how to flip, I did forward flips and backward flips and all this kind of stuff. And I did a video of that, because it's like, here's this 73-year-old guy doing flips on a bungee, on a trampoline and stuff. And I don't say that to brag. I say it because you can reinvent yourself. You can do stuff that you would never dream of doing in the state that you're in now, but you have to do the first step. You have to start. And to me, I'm training a church group right now over in Little Town, Brenham, Texas. And I'm training this church group at the Bridge is the name of it. And I've got about 12 to 15 people in the group. And I'm training them. The first thing we did was eat, sleep, move. And I said, first thing I'm going to do is eat. First thing, what do you need to stop doing? You got to stop eating all sugars. And I gave them a sheet of paper with like 72 different names of sugars. You know, there's glucose, all this different kind of thing. You got all these names for sugars. They come up with these hidden names. I gave them that. I said, don't eat anything with anything on this list. And then the second thing is they said, okay, what? No, it's next. You got to eat less than 100 grams of carbs a day. And I said, that's the second thing. I said, they go, how much do you eat? I said, usually 0, but sometimes 1 or 2, maybe I'll creep up to 5 if I'm having, there's a lady that's in this group that taught me how to make this special creme brulee and ice cream. You just blend it up in the blender, and it's egg yolks and heavy whipping cream. And you put in some spices like cinnamon and pumpkin pie spice and stuff. And I'm not going to tell you the whole recipe. She'd shoot me or cut off an arm or something. But yeah, and it's so good. And so you can have something like that. So I said, you can have something like that for a good food, but eat steaks. And I was walking them through all the stuff. And I said, okay, so number 1 is get rid of all your sugars. Number 2 is you want to do 100 grams of carbs a day or less, preferably less, but Work it out over time. And then number 3 is get rid of all your bad oils. And I said, here's a list of good fats and oils, and here's bad fats and oils. And just remember, good fats are anything that come off an animal or a byproduct of an animal, like butter, stuff like that. And the bad fats are all the other stuff other than olive oil. You can have extra virgin olive oil and maybe some avocado oil once in a while, but really you want to get rid of all those. If it's a big jug and it costs you like $2.37 in the store, it's really bad for you. Really, really, really bad. If you're getting a good oil, you should be paying for a little like 375 milliliter bottle, which is like a pint. You should be paying probably $9 or $10 minimum, up to 15 or 20, something like that for a really good oil. And I said, just do those 3 things. Stop eating sugar, carbs less than 100 a day, and switch to good oils. I said, that's all I want you to do for week 1. So this Saturday, we're going to have our second workshop, and I'm going to talk to them about intermittent fasting, introduce them to that and what it's all about, and a couple of other things about moving and about the little chair thing. And this is something that I did here just the other day. It's like I learned about this. So it's like you sit in a chair, you push it back, and you put a timer on your watch, and you go set it on 30 seconds. You go, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you do how many of those that you can do in 30 seconds. And for a person in their 70s, they're supposed to be able to do 12, but without even breaking a sweat, I did 16. So I'm ahead of the game. I'm doing what 50-year-olds should be able to do. And the reason I tell you all that is because if you reinvent yourself, number 1, it's going to be huge for your mind, because your mind is what atrophies. And I'm not talking about sitting there playing solitaire on your phone for 6 hours. That's baloney. You've got to do something to reinvent yourself and go, what do I want to do the next 30 years? Now, if you got problems, you may be going 30 years. How about the next 30 days? But bear with me. You need to begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. Where do I want to be? What does my life look like when I'm 90 or 100? Or right now, if you're 65 and you're in really bad shape, what does my life look like when I'm 75? Something like that. Begin with the end in mind. Map it out. Write it down. Visualize it. And then say, okay, this is where I want to be, and this is where I am now. How do I get from here to here? What's a little baby step that I can take? What do they say? The beginning of a long journey is always the first step. It's that kind of thing. What can I do? Well, if you're still eating sugars, give up sugar. I'd say that's your absolute first step that you can do. And then do some other stuff. But reinvent yourself. And then go do fun stuff. A month ago, Robyn asked me to make sure I talk about this. A month ago, I used to be in a group on the Texas A&M campus when I was in the Corps of Cadets, and I was a young stud and all this kind of stuff. And it was called the Rudder's Rangers. Earl Rudder helped take the cliffs at Normandy. Okay, he was a lieutenant colonel. Back then, he was not a lieutenant colonel, but anyway, he led a group of Rangers up the cliffs and seized the position. So there's a group at Texas A&M called Rudder's Rangers. Well, I was in the Rudder's Rangers when I was there. Well, the Rudder's Rangers were having a reunion 4 weeks ago, and I saw they were doing a 12-mile forced march with rucksacks. And I went, okay, dude, you're in shape, but at 73, you are not going to do a 12-mile forced road march with a 30-pound rucksack. I said, but I called him up. I said, I want to come join you guys for they're having a little reunion. I said, I want to come join you, but I want to join you the day before, and I want to see you guys doing all the drills. We got to take apart the machine guns, put them together, do all this other kind of stuff. And then the next morning, I want to come join you, and I want to do the last 2 miles of your forced road march. And I said, I will have a 30-pound rucksack, and I will be in full battle dress gear. And because I still had a uniform and all that. So I put on all my old uniform. Boy, it felt good getting back in that uniform. So I got in the uniform, went out there, and they had a really fast pace, and they had a pace team. So he let me off with the pace team, and he told me, well, it's only going to be a mile. Well, he misunderstood where they said to let me off, and it was 2 miles. And the 2 miles was a lot harder than 1 mile, but I made it, and I've got pictures of that. And what was the great thing about it? Because I could pat myself on the back and go, good job, Les. This is what you want to see. This is what you want to do when you're reaching the end. And I'm not reaching the end, but I'm reaching this point where I'm not sick and tired and lame and all this kind of stuff. And I'm reaching the point where I can go, this is great. And this is living. And let me tell you what, when I was with all those young studs, about 60 or 70 of them, after we got finished, they're all coming up to me because they think, oh man, who is this old dude that's going to be with us? He's going to slow us down and all this kind of thing. And I kept up with them. And man, all of a sudden I was all of their best friends. You know, I was the best friend of all of them because they loved it, loved having me out there, told me to come back every time they had an event like that and stuff like that. And it just,
I was going to say,
felt good.
How amazing it was. Not just the act of you doing that 2 miles, but for all of those people to see you do those 2 miles, and what an inspiration it was for all of them. Because maybe not that day, although they did appreciate you being there, yes, but down the line when they're sitting there going, I remember that guy. He was in his 70s and he ran those 2 miles with us.
Yes.
And he was, I want to be that guy. And because you've just planted that seed in their head that you know they can also do the exact same thing when they get older and they feel like, oh, my knees hurt, oh, I need a cane, oh, my back hurts, all of this stuff is piling up. They're going to remember you. I hope you had the opportunity to tell them some of your healing journey while you were together.
Robyn, you're such a great straight man or straight woman. Yes. You know, when it was all over and they're all standing around talking to me and asking me about this and that, whatever. And I went, all right, let me tell you something, guys and ladies. There was a few women that were in the group too. I said, let me tell you what I was like 2 years ago. And I told them, they went, no way. I said, yeah, I was this fat slob. I use different words, but I said, I was this fat slob and I couldn't have walked 30 feet, you know, without assistance and stuff like that. And I said, so you got to get off all this crap you're eating. And what was great is some of them had meat sticks and stuff like that. And they weren't eating, you know, these energy bars and stuff that have all the crap in them. And I said, here's what broke me. This is what you shouldn't do. This is what you should do. You need to eat right and all that. And a lot of them were already there, man, because they're in this Ranger competition. To do that, they had to keep their bodies fueled and fit and all this kind of thing. So I had a perfect platform. And that's the outreach part, that the Living on Love outreach, that I was going, yes, this is a great way. Because normally I would never reach anybody in 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, you know, because I'm just trying to help the old people that are broken and help them get unbroken. And so it was wonderful being able to do that.
Well, consider this. All of those young people are going to be old people someday.
They are. They are.
So those are your target audience as well. You just may not think about it, but they definitely are. And you just doing these things and being active and jumping on the trampoline and people looking at you and all that stuff, that's just that's again planting that seed in the minds of others that, hey, I want to be able to do that too. So yeah, I hope you're handing out your business card and throwing them in the air. You should have had them in your pockets, and when you did your flips, they flew out and everybody could get
That's true. That's
year.
Robyn, man, I need to keep you around. You need to be my business advisor.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I know we're getting close to the end. I've been all over the map. I felt like a ping pong ball, but the thing to try and start wrapping up, because I know we're running short on time, is that I cannot overemphasize the importance of what we used to do when I was working for these big companies. We do what we call gap analysis. Gap analysis is, where are we supposed to be? Where are we now? And how are we going to close the gap to get from here to there? And there's supporting forces that go this way that help us towards where we want to be. And there's opposing forces that push the other way that cause us to go back. So all I've done is I've taken a lot of that corporate training and saying, okay, you've got these forces. How do we get rid of these opposing forces that are keeping us from making our objective? And how do we take these forces here that are helping and help us move us towards our objective? So that's where I came up with and it's not mine, it's Stephen Covey's, I think, begin with the end in mind. But I've taken that to heart. Whatever it is that you're doing, begin with the end in mind. Have a vision. What does that vision look like? And once you have that firmly in your mind, Then you can go start mapping, okay, what's getting in the way? All right, I'm eating sugars, get rid of the sugars. I'm eating seed oils, get rid of the seed oils. I'm eating a lot of processed foods and grains, and stuff like, get rid of that. Those are the opposing forces. What do I need to do to go this way? I need to be eating beef, butter, bacon, eggs. I need to get more fat because you're probably getting way too much protein, way too much carbs, and your protein fat ratios, you're probably getting way too much protein and not enough fat. So you need to look at that and maybe get less protein and more fat. Fat is good. Eat every piece of fat you can get your teeth on. I mean, the gristle from your steak, the gristle, I used to never chew chicken bones and, get the cartilage off. Man, now I clean them clean as a whistle, because all that is so good for your body. Because anybody out there is listening to this, if you're not a believer, I'm sorry. I can't relate what I'm saying at this part, but God built us great bodies that will last and that'll repair itself if we let it. We have to give it the right fuel. We got to give it a little bit of exercise. We got to sleep correctly. And you never make up sleep, by the way. If you're short 2 hours of sleep on a night, you will never make up that 2 hours. It'll take 2 hours off of your longevity way at the other end. So get your sleep every night. That's so underrated by most people, so ignored, and so much important. But have a mission, have a goal, reinvent yourself. What are you going, once you're retired, because most people, they retire and they die, or they retire and they do nothing, and all this kind of stuff. Have a goal, have a mission. What are you going to do? What gets you excited and gets you up in the morning? What wakes you up at 2 and 3 in the morning? Man, I've kind of gotten used to this, going to bed at 8:30 or 9, but all of a sudden my peepers pop open, and as one person said, your Energizer bunny turns on, and it does. And sometimes it doesn't turn off and I'm just up. But isn't that exciting, over having all the problems and issues that you would have to, and because if you have the problems and issues, here's what happened. Your view from out here comes in just like this. And now you're going, oh my gosh, have I taken my pain pill today? When can I take the next one? And oh man, I've got to go see my doctor, and I got to go up one flight of stairs and the elevator's broken. And that's your world. And you don't want that to be your world. You want your world to be, I've reinvented myself, and I'm out here, and this is what I'm doing now. And that's all I got.
Thinking with this amount of passion and creativity and having, this reinventing of yourself, that is youthfulness right there. That's like the secret to youthfulness, is to keep that mind active and to do the things. And you're doing all the things. I sparked something, but I will let you know after you say whatever it is you want to say that Natalie has a question too. So I'm not going to respond. Natalie, you go ahead and take over afterwards. Go ahead, Les.
No, you go ahead, Natalie. Say it now.
Well, I do want to tell you that there are some really great compliments for you in the chat. One of them, I don't know if you know this guy, but his name is Matt Dobbins. And he says that he says that you are a freaking stud. And
he says,
thanks,
what did
Matt.
you text my wife?
Yeah. And he also, and the best Dobbins that is in the chat, Miss Rose, says that you are a great motivational speaker. So I thought you should know that. But my question, and I do know we're at the end, but I really am curious because I'd like to know, with my journey, if it's similar to your journey. When you started your way of eating, did you just dive right into the carnivore, or have you noticed from the starting point to where you are now, have you given some things up? Have you tightened up some things? How has it changed?
Okay, let me see if I can do that, Natalie, in less than 60 seconds. And the other thing I was going to tell you.
Les, I have time. If you have time.
Yeah.
Okay, we can run a couple of minutes over.
You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I want to talk to you about the audience that I want to go forward. So don't let me forget that. But Natalie, what I found was when I started it, and I started I think I said I started, paleo, and then I came in and I did low carb, less than 100, I didn't really see a bunch of movement and change until I switched to carnivore. And then I switched to carnivore, and it was like a rocket ship put on the afterburners, man. A jet fighter plane turns on its afterburners. And that's when I saw all the huge changes coming, like in a few weeks and stuff like, and a few months and stuff like that, and the weight dropping and the inches dropping, and my visceral fat, which I got measured, went from a bunch to less than 3 pounds of visceral fat. I think the last time I had a DEXA scan, it was like 2.7, which is really good for somebody my age and all that. So yeah, it's doing all of those kind of things and then I plateaued, and then I just kind of stayed steady at 185, 190, somewhere in there for about almost a year. And then I got with this other person that was really good at fasting, and she worked with me and kind of coached me on some of this, and I got involved in some fasting different things. And I just completed 2 weeks ago an 8-week series of fasting 3 days a week for 8 weeks. So I fast, and by the way, you save 42.3% on your groceries if you'll fast 3 days a week. I've done all the math. But you can fast 3 days a
However,
week.
you spend it all in new clothes.
And that's a good thing. I've had people say, I'll spend all the money in the world on new clothes, but that's okay. No, but here's what happened.
Keep going.
I started doing the 3 days a week fasting. I've done about once a quarter, I'll do a 5-day fast, which is great. And if you can do 3, you can do 5. Piece of cake, no big deal. It's getting through day 2 that's a bitch. Once you get through day 2, everything after that's kind of coasting. And then I found out my protein fat ratio was bad. I was not eating any carbs, so I'm going, why aren't I losing weight? And I was eating way too much protein because I was eating a bunch of ribeyes and T-bones, but there just wasn't enough fat. So I started eating pork rinds dipped. Somebody told me this and I almost puked, but it's great. I got a big old stick of softened butter, and I just dipped the pork rind in the butter, and that's my chips and dip because I love chips and dip. Yeah, and Natalie's signaling me saying, that's me, I love that too. But yeah, chips and dip, and you just dip it in, and I'll eat a whole stick of butter that way with pork rinds, and so I'm getting my fat that way. But I was getting like 60% fat in between my fat protein, 60% protein and 40% fat, and I just switched that to 60% fat and 40% protein. And remember, N equals 1. N is an experiment. 1 is the number of people in the experiment, me. So that works for me. It doesn't mean it'll work for you. And I'm not a doctor, remember. So 60-40 for fat protein is what I needed. And then the weight started coming off again. And this last fast that I did, and when I weighed, when I got done, I was down to 179. And I don't think I've been 179 since I've been in probably the 7th grade, something like that. It's been a long time.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that because, in the culture of prioritized protein that is very much intertwined in this space, people who don't know what that actually means take it to, I have to eat more protein, which isn't actually what they mean by that. It just means that you do need to eat protein. And a lot of people fall into that trap where they're eating too much, and it starts to metabolize. It doesn't metabolize the same way, and you'll store it as if it's a sugar. So I'm glad you bring that up because that holds a lot of people back. They'll say I'm stalled, and that stall is just because they're eating too much protein. And how easy it is to fix, and lovely to fix it with some butter. You can't go wrong there.
Robyn, there's 2 things that people say that drive me crazy. One is I'm stalled because, okay, so figure out how to get off the stall. Let's get through this. But the other one is I'm mostly carnivore, and I'm using air quotes. I'm mostly carnivore. That means nothing. That means my car's almost out of gas. Does that mean it's got 5 gallons left, 2 gallons, 1 gallon? Is it on fumes and it's coughing? What do you mean by that? So it's like you're either carnivore or you're not. If you're carnivore 5 days a week and then you go to the keto land 2 days a week, that's okay. Just say that, but don't do the other. Now, my closing statement that I forgot a while ago, but I remembered it again, is what am I about now and where am I headed? Well, begin with the end in mind. Here's the end. The end is less, and anybody that does this with less, through LOLO, Living on Love Outreach, is able to reach thousands and thousands of people, up to millions of people in the United States and throughout the world that don't know anything about this. And he's able to help them understand it, motivate them to want to do it, and then help them along the way to get it done. And I say that because there's so many people in all these communities that we have now, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's Ken's PhD community, whether it's Dr. Boz, whatever. It's a lot of internal people that are talking to each other and, okay, well, you know, I did a 3-day fast and, you know, that person did a 4-day, and it's all what I call, it's, if you're working for a company, let's just call PhD the company or whatever it might be. If you're working for a company, it's all the company employees talking to each other about what's going on in the company. I don't want to talk to people in the company anymore. I mean, I will. It's fun to talk to them. I want to go to people that aren't in the company and say, let me show you what life would be like if you came and were in the company. And let me show you, not even that per se, but how can you fix yourself? How can you do something that will help you reach that end that you say you want to get to, if you really want to get to it? I can show you a way that you can do that. And I'm not getting paid a single dime. In fact, I think last year I wrote off like $15,000 of money that I've put into this on video cameras and lighting and blah, 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 books, all these books behind me that you see, Body, Mind, and Spirit and everything. And I got this little Tinker Toy set that I'm using that to help model out some of my stuff. This branches to here and this goes to here and all this kind of thing. So I've got a lot of stuff going on that I'm working on and doing, but I want to outreach to people that are sick and miserable. And I want to find the ones that are sick and miserable, because when I lead the horses to water, unless they let me hold their head underwater in the trough, I can't make them drink. So lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I just want to lead a whole bunch of horses to water.
This is just such an appropriate lifestyle for a Texan, isn't it? You just eat ribeyes, lead horses to water, you know, everything just fits. So we're not inviting everybody to come here. Y'all can stay in California.
Yes, stay in California.
Stay there. However, those of us that are here, thank goodness we're here, and we've got our cows to keep us full and healthy. I love this. And you said that you want to reach people so that they can understand, motivate, and that you could help them learn. So I just changed that to make it nice. I wrote inspire. So understand, motivate, and inspire. And I believe you're doing that. And you're going to do really, really well with that next year at the Renaissance Festival, with those business cards flying out of your pocket while you're doing backflips. So, and then don't forget to stick them in your uniform when you're out with the reunion group. You know, just, I see this. And another comment that I just want to make is, you have so much energy. It's almost bedtime. It's 8 o'clock. It's almost bedtime. You have so much energy and you're not living on sugar.
Yep.
So you're just proving all of the stuff that people think they have to have. They think
I'm living on love. I'm living on love.
That's right. So, you know, you don't have to have the aches, the pains, the medications, all of that stuff. And you don't have to be lethargic. None of that needs to be part of the world. And it's just a sad state of affairs. You mentioned way earlier in your talk that's the culture that we have, is that this is what aging looks like, and the doctors are in on it, the people are in on it, everybody's just in on this is what aging looks like, and you just have to accept it, but you don't. And you are the perfect example of that. And I just appreciate you so much for sharing it with such exuberance.
Amen, sister. Amen. No, you said it perfectly, Robyn. I love it, because you can take my mumbly words and you can smooth them and put them all together. I love it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to use anything that I said.
Perfect.
Put it, and you don't have to credit me or anything. Just use it. It's yours. That's what we do. We were all in the room. Well, he and I were in the room when Dr. Barry was standing on stage, and he said that In fact, he pointed you out by name and talked about you, Mr. Hotshot.
He did. I know.
But
That
he-
was kind of
But
interesting.
he
Yeah.
told us, everybody has something that they can do. If it's retweeting something, if it's sharing something, if it's handing out some information, if it's giving a book to someone, if it's starting a podcast, if it's starting a group in your church, everybody has something that they can do. And yeah, it might feel like we're talking inside of our bubble, but I think it's going out. I think it's going further. I think your end goal is happening. It just took some time to get there. It took some time to get the people to stop talking to each other and to start doing this outreach. But I think it's happening, and I love that you're part of that movement. So we've gone over time. However, we have a last question that we ask all of our guests.
Okay.
You ready for it? It's a hard one.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Hmm.
Do I need to go get some sugar first so I can get pumped up?
Yeah. Get hopped up. Get some Bluebell. Don't get some Bluebell. It's the best ice cream. Yeah. So I moved here already not eating sugars, but I had never experienced Bluebell before or Brahms.
Ooh.
So I spent a good 6 months just eating all the ice cream I could.
A friend of mine likes the Brahms. Yeah.
So I had to rein myself back in after that. But that's beside the point. Let me ask this question. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is just embarking on their low-carb health journey? You
Two
can
words.
have two.
Two words.
Okay.
Don't quit. Don't quit.
That's
it.
amazing. Short and sweet. I loved it. I loved every bit of this conversation, Les. It was fantastic having you. I said in the beginning that we did save the best for last for these live shows, and we've made it through the show. And I still think that we saved the best for last for our live show. I know you feel like you were a little bit all over the place and that you have a lot more to say. First of all, I don't think you were all over the place. But secondly, that just means you get to come back. We will definitely have you back on because it's been a great pleasure to have you with us. And thanks for closing out this adventure with us as we move on to a different type of podcast. But it's been wonderful.
Yeah, Robyn and Natalie, thank you guys so much. This has been fun. It's been wonderful. And I will just close to everybody by saying, I'm going to do a little takeoff on an Army thing, but it's take charge of your bodies and carry out the prescribed activities.
Yes, sir. That's what we'll do. So on behalf of Natalie Shamp, Les Lyons, and myself, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.